November 12th meeting of the Aiken City Council. At this time, we're going to have the invocation and pledge to the flag. Before we do, though, I want to recognize that this weekend was Veterans. The 11th was Veterans Day. I want to say several of us have been around to different ceremonies around our city, and it's been a really special time as we've recognized our veterans. And of course, today is being the day after there was another ceremony, but I think it might be symbolic that we recognize our veterans not only on Veterans Day, but today and tomorrow and the other days of the year, because without their service and commitment to this country, we wouldn't have the freedom that we have to gather like we have tonight. So tonight I'm going to say an invocation, and our pledge is going to be led by Councilman DeWar, who was a veteran, and we appreciate your service, Councilman. And Gary Smith, our city attorney, was also a veteran, so we appreciate that. So if you would please rise, let's have our invocation and then follow the pledge. Heavenly Father, for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country, we thank you. And for the shoulders on which those freedoms were carried, our veterans, we thank you for their service, their commitment, their sacrifice for our country. We pray, Father, that you would bless our city. We pray that your hand would guide this meeting, that everything we say and do would be pleasing unto you. We pray that all of our actions also would please you. It's in your name we ask it. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. I'd like to go over the guidelines for the Aiken City Council meetings at this time. Meetings are public forums in which many opinions are expressed and the business of the city must be conducted. As such, disciplined, honorable, and professional decorum is paramount. Courteous, respectful communication is expected. During public hearings, all questions and statements from the public shall be directed to the chair. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will certainly recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone who wishes to address council, speakers should limit their comments to the subject being discussed. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to address an issue and may only address an issue once unless questions from council are posed to the speaker. And with that, I'd like to recognize our Mayor Pro Tem, Councilwoman Gail Diggs, for additions and deletions to the agenda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. There are no additions or deletions to tonight's agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, Councilman Waltz, all those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The minutes were distributed to council members for their review before our meeting. Is there a motion for the acceptance of the minutes?
I so move.
Councilwoman Diggs, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of the minutes as presented? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down the agenda to old business. Number 1, this is an approval of appointments and discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees. And I'll look for staff input. Good evening, Council. City Manager Beanball, how are you today, sir?
Very well, thank you. Good evening. We do have recommended by Councilwoman Diggs the appointment of Michelle Harper Meriwether to the Accommodations Tax Committee to represent the Cultural Interests category. And she would be appointed for a term that would expire March 15th, 2020. I also would like to remind Council back in earlier this year, we converted the Equine Committee from an ad hoc advisory committee to a standing committee that has 7 positions. And we have contacted the Equine Committee. They've got about 13 or 14 members right now to gauge interest for your consideration for that, but that will be coming to you here in the coming meetings. So you have for consideration tonight Michelle Harper Merriweather to the Accommodations Tax Committee.
All right, very good. Is there a motion to accept the appointment?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
I have a question, however, with the Equine Committee. If I understood what you said, you want to give us a list of names?
Yes, we, once, as they express interest in potential appointment, we will share the names with you. But we can go ahead and give you the names of the committee members, and certainly council's free to appoint anyone they wish, because as I recall, the ordinance, it doesn't have, unlike other committees, it doesn't necessarily require them to have particular interests in a particular equine disciplines.
Is there a schedule of when these folks would meet?
Yes, we would have an organizational meeting, and then they would be more akin to, say, how the Election Commission meets more on an as-needed basis, but they would have standing versus right now they meet at most about once a year. We are trying to schedule a meeting, however, for them to discuss some issues in the equine district. We're trying to gauge their ability to meet over the next month or so.
Okay.
They've got 11 members,
Yes.
so we're going to ad hoc take somebody from this list or add somebody
You
new?
can, if you so desire. They've got already an interest in the back in this particular discipline and experience in some of the issues. But again, you are not required to appoint folks off of that board. But again, I figured it would be trying to make your job easier, because I know sometimes finding members for committees can be difficult. So we're trying to help, at least with this brand new, well, it's not a brand new committee, but the fact it's going from an ad hoc to a standing committee status.
Mr. Beedenbaugh, maybe you could send us a list of who's currently.
I will.
Well, we've got that. It's right here, so.
Okay. Very good, though. All right, are there any names to be considered at our next public meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I have two.
All right, Ms. Price?
The Design Review Board, reappointment of Valise Cummings to that board. And for the General Aviation Commission, reappointment of Carolyn McPherson. Both of them have agreed to reappointments.
Okay. Any other names to be considered at our next meeting? Very good, thank you. Moving down to old business to item number 2. This is a second reading and a public hearing of an ordinance to sell lots on Thorpe Lane to Buck Box LLC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Jerideau, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have an offer to purchase this lot at 1420 Thorpe Lane with the attached purchase and sales agreement. The buyers do intend to consider residential use for this property, and council did approve this at first reading on October 22nd, so it is before you again on second reading.
Okay, very good. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those in favor on second reading of this ordinance, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to old business, item number 3. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance for an installment purchase transaction to finance the public safety facility and approve the base lease agreement and issuance of bonds by the Aiken Public Facilities Corporation. By title, an ordinance authorizing the City of Aiken, South Carolina, to enter into an installment purchase transaction to finance the costs relating to the acquisition and equipping of a public safety facility, authorizing the execution and delivery of various documents relating to such transaction, including the base lease agreement and the installment purchase and use agreement, approving the use of certain money of the city, approving the issuance of bonds by the City of Aiken Public Facilities Corporation, delegating authority to the mayor and city manager to effect such transaction and determine certain matters and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Girardeau. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we agreed to begin this process to relocate our headquarters from Lawrence Street to the Beaufort Street property back in June of 17, this financing instrument was part of that. We have had several work sessions with council this year about this process, and what we have for you tonight to recap is a 20-year term. These are they are revenue bonds, but essentially it's through a commercial lending institution. So we did not, for example, have to get a credit rating. This is a 20-year term borrowing $8,820,000, which is the amount that council agreed to pay Southeastern for the building when the punch list is completed, at the rate of 3.74% for the first 15 years. And then after 15 years, the rate will then be reset to the current market rate, not to exceed 4%. We have no prepayment penalty after 5 years. We can pay the note off or make accelerated payments. The funding for this will come from the money apportioned from the franchise fee that we levy, the extra 2% we began levying several years ago on SCE&G and Aiken Electric utility bills. And they will be approximately $627,000 a year. There is a payment schedule in Exhibit B of the document of the ordinance. And we if it passes tonight, we would go ahead and close this transaction November 15th, and any closing costs will be addressed in a subsequent ordinance in this agenda packet to pay the attorney and financial and other fees. So we have for your consideration at second reading this transaction to facilitate this installment purchase transaction to finance the public safety facility and approve the base lease agreement and issuance of bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Beanbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Comments or questions from council?
I have two, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we publicize who is on the Aiken Public Facilities Corporation?
Yes, we did. I guess we did send a note out to council. The current members, it is a 5-person board, and the rationale behind this, the members first are the mayor, and it is Mary Gwynn, Michael McNeil, John Lindsay, and Harvey Ramseur.
Okay.
And again, this Public Facilities Corporation is something set up in state law that allows municipalities and units of government to set up but this borrowing will not count against our general obligation debt percentage, which currently we have no general obligation debt. And if we were to borrow this ourselves, we would incur, this would go up against our so-called 8% limit, and it would be about a substantial amount because our debt limit right now is about $13 million is the maximum we can borrow from our general fund. Mm-hmm. This allows us to, we've been very conservative in how we've approached our general obligation debt limit, and this still keeps it at a zero amount.
And the second one deals with the Aiken Electric Co-op and SCE&G, the $627,000.
Yes.
That we're using as a funding resource.
Yes.
Per year. Is that the entire amount that we get from the franchise?
No, it is not.
Okay.
We get, of the extra 2%, we get approximately $1 million from that. So this still gives us room to use it for other, it goes into the so-called Transportation and Public Safety Improvement Fund, Transportation Improvement and Public Safety Fund.
Okay.
So, no, it leaves us some
money
ample
to,
revenue,
okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 4, under old business, this is a second reading and public hearing of a budget adjustment ordinance for closing costs for Public Safety Headquarters project. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Dewar. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as I referenced a moment ago, we are recommending we go ahead and pay any related closing costs for this project from our Transportation and Public Safety Improvement Fund. And in order to do so, we need to have a budget amendment. And we have that before council tonight. You reviewed this and approved it at first reading, and it is before you at second reading now. Again, by paying this cost up front, of course, we do not have to roll it into the financing of this particular purchase.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Okay, comments from council? All right, all those in favor on second reading, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 5 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to approve text amendments to the zoning ordinance for the limited business and downtown business district zones. By title, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance regarding limited business and downtown business text amendments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jericho. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. The Planning Commission at their September 11th meeting held public hearings regarding text amendments to these zones, limited business and downtown business. Earlier this year, council did refer several issues about zoning along the Richland Avenue corridor, in this case specifically Waterloo and the downtown business zone district for review and recommendation. After some public input sessions, they looked at existing plans we have, including our existing comprehensive plan, the old Aiken master plan, and the Union Street plan, to determine if adjustments to the limited business zone and the downtown business zone were necessary. And some concerns that were expressed at a city council meeting in July when we sent this, or requested that the Planning Commission review this by a council vote, were liquor stores, bars, nightclubs, as well as parking. And after these public meetings, the Planning Commission had asked staff to present some recommendations for text amendments to the zoning ordinance. So at the September 11th meeting, I do want to mention the text amendments for limited business were prohibiting liquor store uses, period, rather than allowing them by a special exception. Prohibiting convenience store uses rather than permitting those uses by right, and adding definitions for grocery stores and convenience stores. And within the downtown business zone, the text amendments recommend adding a buffer requirement for bars, nightclubs, and liquor stores, defining the central business district in the area currently zoned downtown business, and allowing either a percentage parking reduction in downtown business, and or allowing that the planning director has the authority to take available on-street parking in the vicinity of the use to be credited towards the parking requirements. So after these discussions, the Planning Commission did recommend it unanimously to City Council, and City Council reviewed this and passed it on first reading at the October 22nd meeting, and it is before you tonight for to this amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding the limited business and downtown business zones, this text amendment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council?
Yeah, I have one concern, and it only applies, I'm not sure how many houses, 2 or 3 at most, maybe only 1 or 2. And that is that this will approve an eating establishment, but I'm concerned it doesn't address outside eating, outside dining. And for those parcels that are contiguous to a single-family resident, I'd like to see some protection so that there wouldn't be outside dining in their backyard. If you can visualize being in your house and your backyard is suitable for outside dining. I don't know how best to protect that, but, and as I said, it's a very limited application in that neighborhood. It only applies to, I think, 2 or 3 houses.
Yes. And I would like to ask Mr. Bland, the planning director, to come up to address that to see if it is already addressed, and if not, we could discuss that further.
Good evening, Ryan.
Use the relocated podium. So currently, no, outdoor seating is not prohibited. It would have to meet setback requirements, but those are roughly 20% of the depth of the lot. So outdoor entertainment is prohibited, but not outdoor seating as part of a restaurant use. So there's a number of ways that could be addressed if you wish to do so. One, describing the location and where it would be allowed, say front and side yards, but not rear yards, or if adjacent to residential. There's different provisions like that you could put in there, but right now there isn't a specific location limit, and it does not limit it to only the inside of the business.
And where would those provisions be put?
Those would be,
In the ordinance?
it would be in the ordinance. Full version of it. Bear with me, or else I could have given you some direction.
And I don't know where the single-family residences are in this area, so
Well, that's what I'm trying to picture, because on Waterloo, that short strip, I'm trying to, do you know what, I don't know of any.
We're not,
residents.
this isn't specific to a neighborhood, we're changing the text. Is that not correct, Ryan?
That's correct. So the question, yeah,
Yeah,
so you
okay.
gotta kind of think of it as a global sense, that if you do use this in other areas repeatedly, whether that's of equal concern, it's something that you want to address kind of more globally within this zone district.
So it's specific to Waterloo, that'd be a different issue
Right.
completely for that.
well, I don't know.
It's not referenced in this.
This isn't written just for one street.
No, I assume it was written for that neighborhood where we
Well, it's citywide.
need to, well, it may apply citywide, but, well, I'll get it when it's coming back to us. It's going to the planning commission tomorrow for specifically Waterloo,
Correct,
and then it has to come back to council.
correct, for 2 readings to actually
Okay,
rezone.
I'll deal with it then. I'll know better what my problem is.
But specific to Waterloo, I don't know of any resident that would be impacted unless I'm.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that there is
Yeah.
anything on Waterloo,
Right.
but keep in mind.
Others,
This
yeah.
covers that neighborhood that we were concerned about. Waterloo was one street, but there are other streets that are affected by
Right.
this as well.
All right. Any other comments?
I know we wasn't addressing Waterloo specifically, but we did have a resident that had his hand up to speak. I think that's John Breck, and
Mr. Breck, I'm sorry, did you raise your hand to speak?
No,
Yes, sir. Okay, sorry.
but not on Waterloo.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
very good. All right, all those in favor, and this isn't Waterloo, this is just a text change to the amendment. So all those in favor of the text change as presented, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6 under old business is a second reading of a public hearing of an ordinance to annex 4 properties to the city of Aiken by title and ordinance to annex 4 properties to the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a
Second.
second? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Second.
Councilman DeWar. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have, pursuant to our water and sewer annexation policy, 4 properties for consideration today. We have for you 17502 Notch Road, to be zoned RS10, 17 Hudson Road to be zoned RS15, 122 Branchwater Lane to be zoned RS15, and 604 Boardman Road to be zoned RS10. And council reviewed these at the October 22nd meeting after the Planning Commission had reviewed it in September and unanimously recommended annexation. So you have it before you tonight for second reading, these 4 properties.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Okay, comments from council?
Glad to have them.
All right, good comment. All those in favor on second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous, thank you. Moving down to the section of our agenda, new business, number 1. This is a first reading of an ordinance accepting the FY 2017-18 audit. By title, an ordinance accepting the fiscal year 2017 audited financial statements and authorizing variances to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget ordinance. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, if no one else wants to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll do it.
I second your motion.
He needs training.
Waltz is in the books. That was good. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Price, very good. Comments from staff?
Thank you. We did have earlier today a work session item where our auditors, Malden and Jenkins, represented by Mr. Miller Edwards, presented the fiscal year 17-18 audit, which by state law and city code we are required to undergo annually. And the audit received an unqualified opinion with no material weaknesses and no instances of non-compliance material to the financial statements. So we have for you tonight first reading of an ordinance to accept the fiscal year 17-18 audited financial statements.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council? All those in favor on first reading of this ordinance, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 2 under new business, this is approval of a grant award and first reading of ordinance for budget adjustment for Park and Recreation Development Grant. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory. Councilwoman Price.
Wasn't going there.
Comments from staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have a budget adjustment. We do receive annually these so-called PARD grants, Parks and Recreation Development grants. We do have, it is a $20,000 grant requiring a $5,000 match. We need to make a budget amendment to reflect the revenue as well as the ultimate expenditure. So before you tonight is consideration of this grant as well as an ordinance to adjust the budget.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council? All those in favor on this? And of course, that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to petitions and requests. Item number 1 is approval of action items from the Planning Commission for 2019. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz.
Getting to be a habit.
Come on, give me a second, Dick.
Are you here?
Second, Councilman DeWar. Thank you. Comments from staff?
Yes, we had an action agenda meeting with the Planning Commission, City Council did back on October 15th. And we have not had one of these meetings in several years. We have put together for you the list of action items that were discussed. And I do want to note there were several concerns not directly related to Planning Commission duties that are listed in the cover memo, including the gateway improvements and signage, synchronization of traffic signals along major corridors, and an evaluation and improvement to handicap parking in downtown Aiken. But what I guess council would be voting on tonight is the action agenda that we would send to the Planning Commission, and those would be addressed during the coming year. And then when we have another action agenda meeting in approximately a year, we would see hopefully a lot of these items would be coming forward with recommendations to council and acted upon. So this is for council's consideration, and then we would forward them to the Planning Commission to begin reviewing.
Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Hearing none, all in favor of moving the action items forward to Planning Commission, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 2 under petitions and requests. This is a request to place banners on the arches of the alley promoting the Mardi Gras event. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jericho. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs.
We worked out better than you. Our timing was better.
All right.
Yes, this request does come from the Aiken Downtown Development Association to hang banners on the alley arches beginning January 28th through February 9th, 2019, in preparation for their Mardi Gras event.
Very good. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? I would like to just ask a question. The design for the banner, has it already been approved by our staff? I'm just curious, when we get so many of these coming through, but is design already considered before it comes to council generally?
No, historically, we have just approved the placement of them and the date. But if you would like us to require folks to present a mock-up of what the banner would look like, we can certainly begin asking that of the organizations.
Not necessarily the council, but I think it would be good if somebody signed off on it just to make sure there's...
Yes, we have not been doing that typically, but we can certainly begin doing so.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor of this request to place banners, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Anything in our issues and updates? Okay, hearing none. Before we adjourn, we actually do have an executive session to go into. City Council will go into executive session pursuant to Section 30-470A2 to discuss the negotiations incident to a proposed contractual arrangement and proposed sale or purchase of property, and to receive legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency and other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of claim. Specifically, City Council will discuss a proposed contractual arrangement with the owners of real estate regarding the possible purchase and/or acquisition of land in or near the City of Aiken. 2, City Council will go into executive session pursuant to Section 30-470A1 of the South Carolina Code for the discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, or promotion of a person regulated by City Council. Specifically, the City Council will go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the compensation of certain city employees. With that, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion. We have a second, Mr. Waltz.
Yeah.
All those in favor? And we will step for executive session and come out following to adjourn, where we don't expect to take any action.